Episode 963, The Power of Feel, Felt, Found.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California. And I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you and where are you?
I am on my way to the United Kingdom. I'm leaving Ireland and on my way to the United Kingdom for their annual conference. It's been a few years since I've been to the UK, so I'm really excited to go back. It's one of our first countries outside of North America. As a matter of fact, it is the first country outside of North America that we started.
That joined BNI, you mean?
Yeah. It was the first country outside the US and Canada. I think they were country number 3.
Oh, great. Well, what do you have to share with us?
I have at least I think it's interesting. I was talking to somebody about this in the way they manage chapters. And I use this phrase and they're like, wow, I've never heard that. And this is really powerful. You need to do a podcast on this. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So have you, this is a rhetorical question for those listening. Have you ever had someone disagree with you and instead of pushing back, you actually listened and leaned in? That's a skill. And today, I want to talk about one of the most powerful communication techniques in sales, in leadership, in negotiating, and in networking. Something often called feel, felt, found. Feel, felt, found. Here's the twist. The real power isn't in those exact words. The real power is in the structure behind them. So what is feel, felt, found? In a simple phrase, what it is I understand how you feel. So-and-so felt the same way until they found out X. I understand how you feel. So-and-so felt the same way until they found out this. And at its core, the technique does 3 things. It acknowledges someone's concern. It shows that they're not alone. It gently introduces a new perspective. And it is some variation of that phrase usually, and it's used in sales. And I first heard about it in a seminar I took, I was in my early 20s on negotiating techniques. And they taught us, I understand how you feel. Others felt the same way. And here's what they found. It's simple, it's elegant, it's effective. But let's be honest, if you use those exact words too often, it starts to sound scripted. Plus, if you use those words with negotiating experts or with sales experts, they're going to just say, you're doing a feel, felt, found on me. So you don't have to use those same words. The last thing you want in a relationship-driven environment, like in networking, is to sound like a script. So let's talk about why it works, and let's talk about some other alternatives. The technique works because it lowers resistance. When people feel heard and understood and not judged, they stop being as defensive and they start listening. So here's the mistake that most people make in conversations. They try to win the argument. But in networking, in business, in negotiating, in sales, you don't want to win by overpowering. You want to win by aligning. Let me restate that. You don't want to win by overpowering. You want to win by aligning. This method creates alignment before influence. It says, I'm with you. And now let me walk you somewhere new. Let me share something interesting with you. The real magic happens in changing the words sometimes. You don't have to say, I understand how you feel. Others have felt the same way. Here's what they found. You can say it in ways that feel natural and conversational and authentic without using those same words. So instead of saying, I understand how you feel, you can say, I can see where you're coming from. That makes sense. I hear what you're saying. That's a valid concern. Don't say all of those all at once, by the way. Pick any one of those. I particularly like, I see where you're coming from. And then instead of saying others have felt the same way, pick from these. You're not alone in that. I've worked with others who thought the same thing. A lot of people I've met felt exactly like that. That comes up more often than you might think. That's a phrase you can use. I also say, I had another chapter that was in the exact same situation. That's beautiful in BNI. I know another chapter. I met another chapter. I worked with another chapter that felt the same way. So these are phrases to use instead of saying feel, felt, found. The third, instead of saying here's what they found, you can say here's what they discovered. That's my favorite approach. Here's what they discovered. What ended up happening was, that's another approach. And what they realized over time was, or the interesting thing is, now it doesn't sound like a technique. It sounds like a conversation, which it is, but it's a conversation that's guiding people based on your expertise and knowledge. And you're helping them be a better version of themselves in business. But if you get confrontational, no, don't do it that way. You got to do it this way. Or what are you thinking? That just makes people defensive. But the whole concept of feel, felt, found, or some variation of it, I see where you're coming from. You're not alone in that. Here's what they discovered, is incredibly powerful. And when I was managing chapters, Priscilla, I used this technique almost every time I visited a chapter. And I think this is a great technique for leadership teams to use in a chapter. I think this is a great technique for our members. I think it's a great technique for the membership committee to use in chapters. I think it's a great technique for our members to use with their customers or clients, with BNI members working with their customers or clients. It's a fantastic technique because it gets people to hear, and it also gets people to think, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only person that's experienced this. And you're not making it about them, because if you say, well, you're doing this wrong, you need to do it this way instead, or, let me correct you on that. Yeah, those are fighting words. So instead, I'm with you. I get it. I know a group that had the same situation, and you know what they discovered, and this is what happened. And it draws people in. So let me tie this directly to something I used to do in helping to turn around BNI chapters. I'd often hear something like, this chapter just isn't generating enough business. Now I could argue with them, and I could say, no, you're wrong. The system really works. But that just creates the resistance I'm talking about. Instead, I'd say something like, I hear what you're saying. I can definitely feel that. I can definitely feel that way. Sometimes, it doesn't seem to be working, and you're not alone. I've seen other chapters go through that exact same phase. But what they discovered is that when they leaned in deeper into the process, more one-to-ones, stronger weekly presentations, a better follow-up, the referrals didn't just increase, they multiplied. Let me introduce you to a few of the chapter members in some other groups that were where you are now and have moved to where you want to be. Now, notice what happened there. I didn't dismiss their concern. I validated it. I didn't isolate them. I connected them to others. And I didn't argue. I guided. I coached. That's the difference between reacting and leading. Now, I think this matters today more than ever in a world where people are just constantly being sold to, and algorithms are trying to predict behavior. Human connection stands out more than ever. In a world where people are constantly being sold to and algorithms are trying to predict behavior, human connection stands out more than ever. And one of the most powerful ways to connect is to make people feel understood before you try to influence them. Because when people feel understood, they become open. And when they're open, that's where transformation happens. If you take one thing from today, if you're listening to this, and you take one thing from this today and share it with your fellow members, let it be this. You don't have to push people to change their mind. You just have to walk with them. Walk with them long enough for them to see that different path. Because the most powerful conversations don't start with persuasion, they start with understanding. And when you master that, you don't just change conversations, you change outcomes. Validation lowers defenses. And when defenses go down, conversations go up. I'll leave you with this, Priscilla, and if you want to chat for a minute, I'm happy to do it. You don't persuade by pressure. You persuade by perspective. And the feel, felt, found technique is all about persuading by perspective and not by pressure. What do you think, Priscilla?
I think that's really good. I wish I could remember how you phrased everything because it was excellent.
Well, luckily, there's a transcript. And so for everyone
It's so
who
true.
wants to share this with their chapter, there's a transcript of this whole thing. And we do the transcript, by the way, so that people can do searches on these podcasts. Yeah.
Right. And it works so well. I used to print them all the time. And then when I was the education coordinator so that everyone could use them.
You know, we do these, people have asked me, why do we do them so short? And we do them short because I want members to be able to get through. I want, bite-sized pieces of usable information. But we also do it, and this was in my mind from the very beginning. I wanted education coordinators to be able to go back to a chapter and do what you just described.
Mm-hmm.
Print it out, take down some notes, print it out, go to the meeting and talk about the key points that they heard that particularly resonate with the chapter. So what you're describing is exactly what I had in mind when I started doing the podcast decades ago. That's it for me today, Priscilla. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. This podcast is sponsored by MeisnerAudioprograms.com. These audio programs will provide you with the tools and the inspiration to powerfully enhance your BNI experience. So check out the great material that's available to you at MeisnerAudioprograms.com and then use the promo code Ivan50 for 50% off of everything. All of the proceeds go to the BNI Foundation. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI podcast.